welcome to my studio. I'm Katie Jobling and today we're going to be painting this beautiful acrylic painting together of a sunset ocean scene. And if you really love painting tutorials, make sure that you also sign up for this exclusive mountain painted tutorial. In this one, I actually guide you through the 5 things that every painting needs step by step. This tutorial is not available on YouTube, but it is a 90-minute session packed with incredible painting techniques, color mixing tips, and also I'm going to share with you a process that you can apply to every painting going forward. So don't miss out on that. I'll include the link in the description box and also in the comment section so you can join me on a painting adventure. But for now, let's focus on this beautiful sunset painting and I'll let you know what supplies you're going to need. So for supplies, I've got titanium white, magenta, orange, yellow and phthalo blue. I've also just going to be using one brush. This is a Galleria One Stroke brush. They're my favourite kind of brushes because I love a flat edge. They're so versatile. And this one is the 19mm version. And then I've just got a palette, some water, an old rag, and I'm using a canvas panel. But you can use this on any surface and any size that you wish. Okay, so I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to dip it in some water just to create a nice dampness. You don't really want it wet, but you just want it nice and damp. That'll help the paint travel more easily across the canvas. So what we're going to do, we're going to pop down our base layer, and what's really nice about this is it's going to be reflective, so we kind of want to go from blue into like a light orange and then back to a light blue again. So what I'm going to do to start with is take some phthalo blue and I'm going to add white. I'm going to want quite a little bit of white to blue ratio so that it's a very, very light colour. I'm also going to add just a little bit of the magenta just to create a nice, almost like bordering on like a purpley blue. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of water into that and I'm going to just take that into the sky. Now I like to do quite a thick layer here. Don't be put off of, you know, the myth about wasting supplies or anything like that. I want you to be able to use your paint freely. This layer is going to add some really nice texture and we want to be able to really see and feel that pigment. Also, we're going to be doing some blending here, and for blending to really work, it's going to have to be kind of like wet paint. So we don't want it to dry too quickly. Now what we're going to do is take some of the orange and add in some white and probably just a little bit of yellow actually. And I've already ran out of white already. I've only just begun. I've got a feeling we might be using quite a little bit of titanium white today. You may have to do an emergency run to the shop at some point. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is take that straight into what we've put down, and I'm going to just take that side to side to give that a really nice blend. And then I'm going to wash my brush really well. And I'm going to dry it really well. And I'm just going to take that blend in side to side. Feel free to add a bit of water. You can also do a bit of a diagonal motion to really blend those colours and then back to side again. So this is just kind of creating a bit of a base that we can go on top of. And then we're kind of going to do the same again. So I want a bit more orange, a bit more white, because that's dried a little bit now. Add in a little bit of water. And I'm going to add just a little bit of the magenta too, just to warm that up a little bit. I'm going to put that here. And then I'm going to wash my brush out and I'm going to pop down, we're going to be doing some phthalo blue. This is going to be quite a tricky colour to get actually. Want some phthalo blue, some magenta and also a bit of orange and probably some white. Yeah, that's a really nice colour actually. Kind of like a muted purple, and then I'm going to pop that along the bottom. Now we are going to be going over these layers. This is just the base layer. This is just to provide a bit of a backdrop for our other layers. So don't be afraid that it has to be perfect or anything like that. And here I'm not actually going to blend it too much because this is going to be the sea, and I think these little lines and such could actually help give that effect of the waves and the reflection. In fact, I might even take some of that light pink and kind of bring that right down to the bottom. Okay, so that's our first layer. Now we're going to wait for that to dry. So make sure to wash your brush out really well and grab a nice little drink or snack, and we're going to wait for that to completely dry before moving on to the next layer. Lovely, so what we're going to do next is really start to bring that vibrancy back, because we've added kind of like the background layer, but what we're going to do next is take a little bit of orange and we're going to add in a little bit of yellow to that and lots of white. Now we can add white to lighten this colour, but adding yellow is also a really great way to lighten a colour without losing that intensity or vibrancy. I'm just going to pop that down. I'm also thinking about moving the sun to around here and playing around with that composition a little bit. So I'm just going to pop that colour down, see how I feel. I think that is pretty much the colour I was hoping for. So I'm going to continue to kind of take that into the sky. And I'm going backwards and forwards to really add that kind of effect. Of it going through those wispy clouds and through the waves of the sea. So I'm just going backwards and forwards, and I'm only letting my brush go down very, very lightly. And almost like letting the canvas kind of decide where it's going to pick up these little lighter moments. Okay, and then I'm going to rinse off my brush. I'm going to create another mixture. I'm going to add in a little bit more orange into that mixture, and maybe even a little bit of magenta, just a tiny bit, and some more white. And especially at the edges, I'm kind of going to blend into what we've just put down. I'm going to rinse my brush off, and just using like kind of a mixture of these colours, I kind of want to blend these through. And I might even add a little bit of white to that. For a little bit of a lighter streak. Also, I'm noticing a bit of a harsh line between the blue and the yellow, so what I'm going to do is kind of marry those two together. And to do that, I'm going to mix a little bit of the magenta in. And I'm kind of going to mix these two together actually with a lot of the white. And it's a bit like a grey really, it's kind of like a nothingness, but I think that will just help blend these two colours together. And you can see the layers kind of sitting on each other and forming. I'm going to use a little bit of water here to meld those two together, because I didn't mind it in the sea, but in the sky I kind of want it to be a bit more blended. Or you can also use something like a glazing fluid, something like this would also be fine. And then I'm just going to take that yellow back in. And then I'm going to use that same kind of colour and just kind of pop some little bit of, you see that like foamy, frothy bit in the sea. I'm just going to use the corner of my brush to kind of pop in some little areas of this foam, because it's going to be reflecting the sky, so kind of whatever we put in the sky we can also choose to reflect that in the sea. Okay, and I'm going to rinse off my brush. Now something that is kind of bugging me at the moment is this, where the brush picked up on this kind of darker, this lighter yellow bit. So I'm just going to take some of that blue and I'm going to kind of take that in. And obviously yours might look a little bit different anyway at this point. So if there's anything that's kind of bugging you, you can just go in and kind of amend that. And I've created like a darker colour. I've got some phthalo blue, orange and a bit of magenta here. And I'm going to use this to create some kind of waves and some little lines that you can see in the sea. So I'm just going to very lightly take the edge of my flat brush and I'm just going to work it side to side. We're just going to pick up some of that canvas to show where some of these waves might be. And also add just a little bit of texture in this foamy part. And then I'm going to rinse off my brush. And I think now I'm going to wait for this to dry, and then what I'm going to do next is pop in the rocks. So as that's drying, we can start to make the kind of the colour mixture that we're going to be using. So for that I'm going to be using phthalo blue, a bit of magenta and a bit of orange. We're going to see what that gives us. If it looks a little bit too orangey, I'm going to add a little bit more magenta until I get this really dark colour. I'm going to take that all over my flat brush. And I'm going to use my flat brush kind of like perpendicular to the canvas. So rather than kind of putting it down like this, I'm going to hold it kind of flat against it. And I'm going to use this to kind of like carve in the shapes. Now, we don't have to use the reference image for this. We can kind of just go with how we feel. We can move things around. You kind of lead the eye into the painting. I'm going to definitely have this one here. I think that's a really nice placement. And I'm going to pop this one here. And you can see already how much instantly it just gives it so much depth. One of the common mistakes I see a lot of beginners make is adding in a rock and thinking, okay, because it's a rock, I need to make it brown, or, you know, kind of add that dusty colour. But what we need to always remember is anything in the environment only reflects the colours that's around it and the lighting. When you think about where's the light coming from, what colour is that light? Is it warm light? Is it cool light? And this all makes such a big difference on how those colours look, and especially with sunsets, most of the time it's very dark because it's a silhouette, especially if you're looking kind of against it. I'm also just going to add in a few little bits of shadows here, not too much, using that dark colour just to lead into the painting. I'm just going to pop in a little bit of details in some of those waves just to give it like a really crisp line. And I don't even think that I am going to add in these rocks in the corner. I think I kind of like it very open like that. And I'm going to rinse off my brush. And next what I'm going to do is take a little bit of a lighter colour, so maybe this kind of orange, maybe a little bit of magenta, maybe a little bit of blue just to take that down a notch. That's perfect. And I'm kind of going to think about where the sun might be reflecting on these rocks, or just kind of covering the top, and kind of just thinking about where that light is hitting on those rocks. This is just going to add a little bit more depth and shape. And we're going to kind of start to build up some of these layers as well in the colours. Okay, that's fine. And then just to pretty much probably finish that off, I'm going to take some of the yellow, lots of white, just a very, very light yellow. And kind of add just a few little bits of highlights. We don't want too much, just some highlights of where that sun is hitting on the rock. And sometimes I'm popping a little bit of the colour down, and then I'm just kind of smudging it with my finger. You don't want to do this too much, and always make sure to wash your hands, because it's actually not very healthy at all to get paint on your skin. But sometimes I just can't help myself. But you can also get a glove and do this with a glove on too, if you like this kind of effect. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it there for now, and I'm going to rinse off my brush. We're going to let this fully dry now, and I'm going to go wash my hands. So next what we're going to do is work on some of the clouds. So to do that, we want to be mindful that as the clouds go out, they want to get a bit darker. So we'll start with the lightest colour first, and we can probably use a mixture of what we've already got on the palette. If it's already dry, you want a bit of magenta, a bit of orange, tiny bit of blue, like tiny, tiny, tiny. And a lot of white. Actually, not too much white. Now I've said that. We obviously want the clouds to be kind of like a shade darker in the middle there. So it's kind of reminds me, this colour reminds me of those fruit salad sweets. I don't know if you have those where you are, but in the UK we used to get like something called fruit salad sweets. And that colour just reminds me so much of that. So that colour's perfect. You just want it a shade darker. We can go in heavy with the purple, kind of like at the sides, but just in the centre, we just kind of want a little bit darker than the sky itself. And I'm just using my brush and the corner of my brush, kind of going round and round, just kind of building up those shapes. And where do I want my sun? I think I kind of want my sun about here. So I'm going to kind of go around with a kind of like a spirally motion, kind of just making up these little wispy bits. kind of really letting my brush do most of the work. And I will basically do all the cloud in this, but then what we'll do, we'll go over it with the other colours. And it's kind of coming down here. I love that. I love that when clouds kind of come down from the top of the painting. It really frames the painting really nice. Draws the viewer's eye in. Okay. And then kind of continue at this side. Just going to keep making up these little formations, taking my brush around in circles. And you can really play around here with the technique. Okay, I think I am pretty happy with that. So now what we want to do is kind of add in a little bit more on top of this. So we're going to add a little bit more magenta into that same mixture and a little bit more blue. And I'm telling you, be really, really careful with that phthalo blue because it's a very strong pigment. I've kind of got this like purple shade, and I'm happy with those that are closest to the sun, but we can just start bringing in these more purple shades, just kind of like at the top of these clouds. Just give them a bit more of a fuller appearance. And I'm just using the corner of my brush. I'm getting some paint on, just using the corner of it. And just letting that kind of pick up the canvas and the texture on the canvas. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is add a little bit more phthalo blue into that mixture. So we want magenta, phthalo blue. And it's totally up to you how kind of purple or dark you want to go. Because this is very dark, but I'm just going to bring that in. Again, you can kind of use your finger to smudge it, or a very soft brush would also do the trick nicely if you've got one lying around. If you do use your finger, just make sure you wash your hands straight after. And building up clouds in acrylics is one of my favourite things to do. You can get some really cool effects. Perhaps we'll do a lesson on clouds, just all about clouds one day. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that, and I think I'm going to leave it there for the clouds. I'm just going to rinse off my brush, and again, I'm going to wash my hands, but also I'm going to go and change my water because it's looking a little bit grubby, and we're going to need some nice clean fresh water for the next part. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the final part of the painting, and I've got a very clean water, clean brush ready for this final part. Now you can also use a small little round brush, something like this would also work really nicely for this stage. I'm going to stick with one brush because I just really like using one brush, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put paint right on the corner and use that almost just like a detailed brush. And it is a nice habit to get into as well, using your brush in different ways. So I'm going to take some of the yellow, and then I'm going to use, in fact, it may be easier if we add yellow to the white because we want this very, very light. This is basically going to be the sun now, and I don't like to use white, but I like to just use a very, 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 very light yellow. Something like this. So I'm just going to kind of wipe off any excess paint so that it's not too heavy-handed. And then what I'm going to do is pop some paint just on the corner, like this. And this is where we pop in our sun. So I'm going to pop mine here because I'm just changing it a little bit from the reference photo. And to do that, I'm just going to pop it down and just kind of go round and round and round in circles until I feel like it's big enough. And you'll see, like, as we add the lights and the darks into a painting, this is what brings it to life. This is what gives a painting such depth, is when you have these lights and darks really playing into each other. Then I'm going to continue to take some of that on the edge of my brush, and I'm just going to very, very small line some of those clouds that are around the sun, because it's just such a bright reflection that it's kind of picking up on those clouds. And then I'm also going to take that just below where the reflection is, and I'm just going to go side to side, bringing that down into the water. And I might just actually wipe off my paint off my brush and kind of take now the flat edge of the paintbrush, not too much, just a little bit, so that you can kind of work that down in lines coming down the water. And as it gets closer, we want to take it from the lines, because they're not like tight waves. Now it's just kind of like free flowing water that's pooling around. I'm going to take my corner again and just kind of move my brush back to forth, just let the canvas pick up little areas of that. Sometimes we can have like almost too much control over where the paint goes, and it gives this feeling that it's not actually very, what's the word? It's not very authentic. Because in nature, we don't get to place things where we think they should go. They kind of just, these moments happen. Sometimes we need to relinquish that control. Also what I'm going to do is just with the corner of my brush, I'm just going to pop a little bit on this rock here. Just pick up that reflection, and maybe just in a couple of areas on this rock also, not too much, just a little bit here and there. And I think that's pretty much done. I maybe need to go this way and balance that out a little bit more. But it's really good now just to kind of like step away, have a look at your painting, because your painting will look also different to mine at this point. And it's good just to step away, maybe grab a drink and then come back to it and just see if there's anything that's maybe bugging you, or if there's anything that doesn't feel quite right. In fact, there is something that I would like to change. And I really love this reflection, but also I think it needs breaking up slightly here. I think it feels a little bit too block heavy all the way down. So what I'm going to do is take a bit of the phthalo blue, a little bit of white with some of that magenta, and I'm just going to break that up slightly. Yeah, I think I'm a lot happier with that now. So it's kind of just going in and editing bits here and there about the way you want to do it. And there's always just one touch that I like to add just to finish on, and that is taking up a tiny bit of white on the corner of my brush, just a tiny bit, and just adding a very small center to the sun, very slight. It just really makes it pop. So yeah, I think that's finished. Thank you so much for painting this beautiful painting with me. It's been lovely hanging out with you. I would absolutely love to see your painting, so make sure you post on Instagram and tag me in at Katie Jobling Art. It is such a joy to see your versions as well. And also, before you go, don't forget to register for the exclusive painting tutorial with this painting. I'll pop the link again in the description box and in the comment section. In this session, you will not want to miss it because we explore some incredible painting techniques in acrylics, and I'll be sharing tips on colour mixing and also the process that you can use with every painting going forward. It's a pretty special tutorial, and so make sure that you don't miss out on that. Thank you so much for painting with me today. I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye!